All right, you guys. So what I'm doing is I'm recording this download over for those of you that missed the support group, and for those of you that um, came towards the end of the support group so that you could hear the message. And this message is about the ability to accelerate, and you not being able to accelerate this. So a lot of the information that I received in that transmission yesterday, I had to redact because it wasn't for the general population, but it is for us to, give our input, take what we want. And, if we want to leave the rest, we can leave the rest. But it wanted to talk about accelerating the process, And so your guys and your ancestors were saying that there is not a way that you will be able to accelerate this. All right. Sometimes when we get on our journeys, we believe that, oh, I should be going faster, or I should be, doing something different, or I should be moving a lot quicker through my healing or through my transformation than I am. But it's beyond your control at that point. And your awakening is going to require like different things, of you. And then once you have done those things, you're going to have to now sit in those things, so to speak, until the transformation or the transition has occurred. All right. And the reason why I'm saying that is because right now, and for many years now, we have been transitioning from the old earth to the new earth. So it's not anything new. We're going through different phases in the cycle of the transition, but there's nothing new from those times into now. And so this transition has been happening for years, possibly decades. And the reason why I say decades is because there was like some kind of mass awakening when I was like in elementary school. And I feel like it awakened in like my era. I'm not sure. I mean, there were some awakenings that took place before, but it was a lot of people that wasn't really interested in participating in a journey such as this because they was afraid of what the perception would be of them. And so I can remember like being in middle school with my three friends, Carl, Coles, and Carlton, and they were triplets. And I always thought that Carlton was like the evil triplet, but that's neither here nor there. But we were great friends. And we used to talk about things such as the cosmos, God, creation, space, all of these different things. And I felt like our mind and our thought process was beyond our wildest imaginations. And the way we saw it was way bigger than most of the kids our age that hung around us. They didn't hang with us, but they hung around us. But I was always, even though I had that group of friends, I was always the weird one of those friends because I was above and beyond. Like I did not subscribe to certain belief systems. I just didn't. I don't know what it was about me, but my soul just never resonated with these things. And even though I aligned with it at one point in my life, I knew that I had to get myself out of it. But to say all of that, once I got about 15 years old, a lot of my ancestors had passed away. I had aunts and uncles. I had several deaths within that year. And there were 2 times where I noticed that death had taken place twice that month. And so one night I had like a dream, waking vision, dream walk, something. I don't know what it was because I was so young. I didn't understand this stuff at that time. And I saw all of them standing inside of a cave. And I felt like that moment right there where I engaged them, then it prepared me for 22 years down the line now, right? And so I said all that to say that had to be that pivotal moment when the earth began to make its transition into that 5th dimensional consciousness, into that 5th dimension. And so your guys and your ancestors saying that this is going to take as long as it's going to take. And what's happening is because the earth is shifting into a new phase of consciousness, you're now shifting into a new phase on your journey. All right. And so as you shift into these phases and the earth shifts into this next dimension, you're going to be feeling different types of acclimation effects. And these effects will gradually become more intense the more that the earth begins to transition into that full fifth dimension. So leaving behind the old earth and bringing forth the new earth. And a lot of people will transition from the new earth and stay on the old earth, or won't never make it to the new earth. Some of them might catch up, but others won't. All right. And so you'll see a lot of this happening, like with people dying out and things like that. But that's what's happening. You have these different acclimation periods. Okay. And these acclimation effects and this acclimation period, you got to think about it when you leave one form of elevation and move to a higher form of elevation. What begins to happen? Some of the acclimation effects are you are dizzy, you have cracking of the ears, you have nosebleeds, you get headaches, you don't want that much to eat, you feel dehydrated. It's like all of these different physical effects because you change elevations. I remember when I moved to Colorado Springs for a little while, as I was stating in the video, the elevation was so high that my ears started cracking. I used to be so thirsty, like headaches, all of these different things. My physical body did not feel like I was going to make it in Colorado Springs. And that's what's probably happening to you right now as you transition to this higher level of elevation within your ascension process. What may be happening is you're feeling these acclimation these acclimation effects because the body has to get prepared in order to engage in this type of frequency. All right. So you may be feeling sick, you may be feeling dizzy, you may be feeling like you can't eat the foods that you used to eat. You can't do as much as you used to could do in the amount of time that you used to could do it, because you need a little bit more time for your body to get used to what it's feeling. All right. And so therefore your body has to be in a better condition in order for you to be able to adjust and align with this frequency and align with this elevation. Okay, so think about it like this. You might have been in one place, like going to Colorado. What I noticed was I was able to run 2 miles 15 minutes before then. And as soon as I get there, I'm adding 2 additional minutes to my time. I'm slowing down because my body is not prepared for this level of elevation. All right. And no matter how hard I push myself, my body had to build up a tolerance for the new environment, for the new frequency. My body had to build up stamina. My body had to adjust. All right. My physical self had to be more in a better condition, in a better state of being, in order for me to be able to operate in that space. All right. Things that I used to, I breathe differently in one place than I did in the next. So I had to condition my lungs in order for it to be able to breathe, because it used to be a burning sensation in my chest and I couldn't quite put my finger on it. I couldn't eat the same heavy foods that I would eat in one space that I could eat in this space, because my body was so discombobulated and so misaligned that I had to take it easy. All right. If I would have attempted to push myself any further, what would have happened was I would have got sick. I probably would have created injuries, and different things like that. And that's what's happening with you. You cannot push yourself further than your body is allowing you right now, even in your healing. Sometimes you want to accelerate your healing, but you cannot accelerate your healing. All right, it's going to take as long as it's going to take. And sometimes you can want to do so many things and you can want to learn so many different things that you end up hurting yourself, that you end up pushing your physical body further than it could go. And what happens is you end up messing up the wiring, messing up the configuration in your machine here. And this machine is the thing that's going to transport you from dimension to dimension. This is the thing that's going to determine whether you make it completely into this new earth and be able to exist in this new energy or not. So you have to take it easy and you have to take your time. And you can't take on more than what you're ready for. Because if you push your mind more than it can go, then you go into a psychotic state. Then you mess up your mental capacity. If you push your body further than it can go, then you create injury, and you have to rebuild and reestablish those things. So do not try to push yourself any further or any harder than you're supposed to go right now. All right. So another thing that your guys and your ancestors was trying to communicate during that time was, when it comes to things such as acclimation, things such as adjustments, things such as healing, things such as your transformation, you got to look at it in the form of surgery. All right. And in this process of the surgery, you got to understand how much you can do, or how far you can go when it comes to the surgery. Also, what type of surgery needs to be done at that time. When the ancestors, when your guys and your ancestors came and they said, they was talking about the acceleration, meaning that the acceleration is the rate in which velocity can change, right? And it also determines the rate in which velocity can change in terms of both the speed and the direction. So with acceleration, sometimes you can't go a certain speed, all right? And sometimes you can't go a certain direction until it's time, all right? So velocity, acceleration, the acceleration rate is the rate in which velocity changes with time in terms of both speed and direction, all right? Velocity is the speed, and it's the time and rate of change position of a body or a specified direction. All right. So you're not going to be able to go as fast as the physical body will allow you to go. You're not going to be able to switch directions unless it's meant for you to switch directions. All right. And so you have to pace yourself as it relates to the speed in which you go. Because if you try to force yourself to go faster than your guides and your ancestors are going to allow you to go, you're going to end up creating injury or creating some type of issue that was avoidable. Okay. So as it relates to the healing, when you heal, you have to heal what is underneath the surface. All right. And so what is underneath the surface of yourself? And you have to be honest with yourself in that healing. So that's why they was urging you to go into observation. That's why they was urging you to begin your healing and all of these things. So that's why it's like all these years, it seemed like you've been healing for like decades. Well, you've been healing for decades because you have been healing for decades, because there are certain times, there are things like you're not going to heal all the way right away. All right. There's again, no such thing as accelerated healing. All right. And so what happens is once the healing begins, the healing cannot begin until you treat the wound. But you can't treat the wound unless you identify the wound, and you're not going to be able to identify the wound unless you expose the wound. All right. So the first thing that happens when you have a wound that's bleeding profusely, because you might have more than one wound, but if you got that one wound that's bleeding profusely, you're going to treat that wound first, because that wound is the most intense wound right there. And so what they want you to do is, when it's talking about applying pressure and dressing it up, all right, until you can figure out, okay, what's the best course of action to handle this wound. Now, this wound, because it's the most severe wound, it's going to take a lot longer than the other small wounds to heal. So those wounds, again, may require just some Neosporin, a little Band-Aid, they might require a little wound, but that deep wound, that wound that can create the most catastrophic, detrimental thing to happen to you, that wound is the one that needs the actual OR. It needs the actual anesthesia. You know what I'm saying? It needs for the for you, the surgeon, cause you're gonna be the doctor, and then you're gonna have your whole surgical team right there trying to assist you with the wound. All right. And so your surgical team will be your guides, your ancestors, your spiritual core, the things that you align with on your spiritual journey. So those are going to be the ones that are assisting you in the surgery. Okay. And so now what has to happen is, once you identify the wound and once you know which type of wound that it is, now you got to figure out how you're going to heal the wound. So in order to heal a wound, you got to clear the area, right? So you got to isolate this wound. You have to clean the area to expose the wound and then isolate the wound. So you always see, like in the doctor's room, when they cutting open somebody, they got like all of this blue stuff, all this blue paper or whatever this stuff is, I don't know, surgical cloth over them, and then it's open, and then you see them only operating on the thing they operating on. So if they operating on the heart, you only see the heart. If you're operating on the lungs, you only see the lungs, things like that. So knowing what you're operating on, so you isolate the wound, you clean it, you isolate the wound, and then now you're going through the surgical process. Okay, so as you're going through the surgical process, your surgical team is doing all the suction, making sure that you can see the wound clearly. All right. So every time you look, you in there operating on the wound, and then they sucking the additional blood that's filling up in the wound, because that stuff is going to cloud the way you view the wound. That stuff is going to cloud it. That stuff is going to conceal the area, and it's going to make it harder for you to see the wound. So they got to make sure that they keep all of that external stuff from covering the wound, because you might miss something. They don't need you to miss nothing. And because this wound is so deep, and because this wound is it could create so much bodily harm and influence, you have to be precise on how you take that bad boy out. All right. And so after you take that bad boy out, guess what? Now they're going to close you up. But this one, because it was so deep, you need stitches. So you got to give it time. You got to give stitches time to seal off the wound. Then you got to give the wound time to heal. Then after that, the doctor going to discuss, you, the doctor, and your spiritual team, y'all going to discuss how long it's going to take for that whole recovery process to happen and what the next treatment plan is. And sometimes you might have to go through physical therapy. All right. Thinking about what we were talking about earlier with acclimation and things like that. We're talking about age, we're talking about diet, we're talking about capacity of the body, we're talking about the mind, we're talking about all these different things that play a factor: mindset, diet, physical body, emotional stability, all of these things, mental capacity, all of these things play a factor in your healing of that wound. All right. And so now you got to go through this recovery process. And you might take 2 months to recover, where somebody, that has been doing this a lot longer, has developed a lot more stamina, has been, preparing the body a lot longer, can take just a month, or it might take them, you might take somebody else 6 months and it'll take you 2. But who cares, right? Because it's about what you can handle at the capacity that you can handle it at, when you can handle it. Okay. And so you might think you can handle something, but it's when you go and do the assessment and doing all those reevaluations to assess the treatment plan and see how effective or ineffective the treatment is when you will be able to truly know how long that recovery time is. Okay. And so sometimes you might go and reevaluate and reassess the whole wound and see how well it's healing, and realize you left a little piece of bacteria in there, which has set up an infection. And if you don't get it out, guess what? It might cause you to have to amputate. And you don't want to amputate, because then you are going to have to now go and get something artificial and attach it to you. And then you're going to have to learn how to function and operate with that artificial thing that is not a part of you. So your guys and your ancestors are saying they want you to get the wound right now. They want you to get all the stuff right now. They don't want you to leave no bacteria behind. They don't need you to have to amputate. They don't need you to have to add anything false to you. You are already designed in the makeup that you're supposed to be in. You're in the space that you're supposed to be in. You're going at the trajectory that you're supposed to go at. You're going at the rate you're supposed to go at. So they don't need to add anything to you, because anytime you add anything false to your being, it creates a scar tissue. And every time you look, scar tissue does what? It gets hard. And then you have to go in there now and continue to reopen the wound, because you have to continue to take out scar tissue. So that's not what they wanted you to do. They wanted you to take as long as necessary for this wound to heal. They don't want you getting up on the injury, trying to maneuver through the injury to create further injuries that was unnecessary. They don't want you to get up and think that, you know, you got it and you don't got it. They don't want you to be healed and continue to linger and think you're not. Like, they want you to have all of this together. But all of that is dependent upon your actions, your body, your mindset, what you have been doing in preparation for. How much of this have you ignored? Your surgical skills, your ability to honestly assess the real issue, your explicit knowledge, the things that you possess within you. How honest could you be with your own assessment here? Did you put everything on the chart, or did you leave something off? Okay, so that's what your guides and your ancestors are telling you. You cannot accelerate this. You cannot move faster than you're supposed to move. You cannot decelerate. You're not in control of this cosmically. The only thing that you are in control of is how your mind functions, how healthy your mind is, how healthy your body is, and how healthy your spirit is. And you have to continuously do those assessments, continuously do those checks until the healing is complete. You can't move into another frequency before it's time. You can't elevate faster than allowed. You can't acclimate to the elevation faster than allowed. You are not going to be able to shift into a higher elevation without some acclimative side effects. And depending on where you are in your journey will depend on how long it takes for those effects to subside. Depending on where you are in your journey will determine whether you need some ibuprofen or some ginger tea. All right, so that's pretty much it, you guys. I hope you guys actually enjoyed this message. I hope you're able to take something away from the acceleration download. I hope that the information wasn't, you know, y'all know I get excited when spirit souls show up. But I hope that this information was very informative, and I hope it was easily communicated and well understood for the listeners and for the audience. I am the Ancestor Healer, and I'll holler at y'all.